Well, thanks for joining us. We're going to be recording episode 101 about The Office, and hopefully it goes pretty quick because I got to get back to my family at the Finger Lakes. Don't want to leave them wondering where I am for too long. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to TV Guys, and there's been a murder, and you're a suspect. I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
I'm Brandon.
I'm Michael.
And we're talking again about The Office, one of the greatest shows ever. We've talked about seasons 1 through 3 with our buddies, the Rizdals. We talked about season 4 and 5 with our special Rodenberg Rasmussen Tharps. And this time we're talking about season 6 and 7 with B Money and M Bunny. So we're excited to bring that at you. It's going to be great. If you've watched those other episodes or listened to those other episodes, you know we have a number of categories. We talked about our best cold opens. We talked about our best and worst episodes, the best and worst storylines of each season, and the most memeable moments of each season. So we're not going to waste time because we want to get into this. We want to talk about some awesome stuff. So we're just going to start in season 6, the worst of the Michael seasons, in my opinion. By the way, we're talking about the last of the good Office seasons this week. Next time when we're talking about seasons 8 and 9, it's like, right?
There's still good parts, but yeah.
I mean, there are some. I would even say good arcs.
Yeah. And we'll talk about some good arcs, and then we'll also talk about some terrible arcs, and they all have to do with Andy. Spoiler alert.
Well, let's wait till that's the next podcast. Let's talk about this one.
Oh my gosh, he falls off a cliff after season 7. Is like, now I'm going to carry the show and do it terribly. All right. Well, season 6. Let's talk about cold opens. Season 6 to me didn't have amazing cold opens, but it had a couple memorable ones. And so, what would you guys say? What was your top cold open from season 6?
I had a couple. I think I would pick the karate. What's new in karate? Cold open. Jim getting Dwight to fight himself. I mean, classic.
He's making
that
you
one
look such
tickles
a
me.
fool.
Yeah. He really is.
That's a good one. What episode is that starting off on?
That's on Murder.
That's Murder, yeah.
That's a good episode.
It's on my list as well.
For me, I was actually surprised that my favorite cold open was one of the worst episodes, and I don't even call it an episode because it was a clip show. But I liked the cold open to the banker. The only original part of the episode was actually surprisingly good. And so it had the banker coming in and he's meeting this new and improved sort of Dunder Mifflin. And so you have Computron voiced by Dwight, and you have New Stanley. Yeah. And it's just a lot of fun things of like what Michael thinks would be impressive and how everyone goes along with it. Because as Pam says, it's like Michael is the highest ranking person in the company. So they have to listen to these crazy ideas and they go along with it.
Didn't Pam have an accent?
She was like foreign international correspondent.
International salesman.
Yeah. So bonjour. She just said hello in all these languages.
I went with the premiere, like the first thing you see in season 6, which is the Andy, Michael, and Dwight doing parkour.
Parkour.
I love Jim's explanation. Like, it is parkour as long as point A is delusion and point B is the hospital. And then after Andy jumps into the refrigerator box, he says sad parkour.
And it was a great satire. I mean, it wasn't quite as big as it was because parkour went through a big renaissance. And by season 6, it was a little old hat, but it still was close enough that he took advantage of the meme the fad while it was going.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, what do you got?
So shareholders meeting is Recyclops is one of my favorites.
Ooh, that's good.
Plus, if you remember the NBC block back then, you had multiple comedies in a row on Thursday night. And NBC had told all of the shows that they had to have a Earth Day theme. Mm-hmm. And so The Office starts, and the previous show that came before it, I think at the time, was the one about the call center in India. And the whole episode had been incredibly green. And it was to the point where it was just almost like watching a NBC infomercial. And so The Office kind of, I thought, gave a little bit of a snarky response with their cold open being green themed, and then the rest of the episode isn't. And it's not even that green of a cold opening. And just something about Dwight and the throwbacks too, where you see different staff through the years. I always thought that was a really funny cold open.
Mm.
I love how invested Stanley seems to be in the Recyclops something. Like he
Yeah.
knows the names of these
Yeah,
things.
Jim clearly does not remember it, but Stanley, of all people, remembers the whole mythos behind Recyclops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that environment push, and what they did on Community that week was when they had the dean like print off like a 500 flyers, changing the name from Greendale to Envirodale, and someone's like, "We're already called Greendale." He's like, "Print off 500 more. I'm trying to save the planet here."
30 Rock, either that year or the year after, they had a really good tongue-in-cheek joke because they had David Schwimmer on as the guest star about Earth Day. But Kenneth makes this like comment about like, oh, we're actually doing something for Earth Day. Usually NBC just puts a green logo in the corner, and then he looks down at the NBC logo and it's green, and it just kind of looks at like a fourth wall break to the camera. I really liked that comment. So, Mike, I appreciate you bringing back that full lineup because I had forgotten about that till you triggered that in my mind.
Yeah.
I also wanted to shout out to the Chump cold open, which is Toby, Bin Laden, and Hitler, and the
Yep.
two bullets.
It's on
I
like
love
Mike Holden.
the debate between everyone of how they would do it. Is this the thing with the icicle and all of that?
Brian, Brian and I are sitting next to each other. It
Yeah.
doesn't happen much, but every now and then I visit Wilmer. I didn't put like extras, but I definitely want to give a shout out because he's got like 5 on here. I want to give a shout out to one I'd forgotten about. I love the one he put, Stanley and the push-up challenge.
Oh yeah.
At the beginning of Happy Hour. Even though like the whole thing about Stanley is a really good gag, I really love the Creed moment where Creed's not doing any push-ups and Michael just, Creed disqualified. Just, oh, come on.
I make for all the categories, I make like a list, and then I decide in the moment what I'm going to decide is my best one.
Yeah.
Or I'll let you guys all go first, and I'll take what's left.
See, this guy podcasts. He's done this before. He knows. All right, let's talk about some of the storylines. So we've got best and worst storylines. I have taken your approach here, Brian, because I have a couple good ones and I have a couple bad ones. So let's talk about, because everyone loves bad things get clicks. So what is the worst storyline in season 6? There's some doozies.
I have 2, and they both involve Michael's love life.
Yes, Michael and Donna is one, I'm sure.
Yep, and then Michael dating Pam's mom is the other one. That was just cringy.
Okay, I'll disagree with Michael and Pam's mom because that gave some really good responses. I really like Pam having to deal with it after finding out, and like her response. I thought that had a lot of room for humor. You're right that the breakup was really cringy. That hurt.
Yeah.
But I think there is a lot of good opportunity out of Michael and Pam's mom. But let's talk about Michael and Donna real quick because that did suck.
Yeah.
It's not fun to watch a character, even though Michael has some jerky moments, he really leaned hard into that. And it's hard to watch a character that you like. And there are some things like, okay, I can only tolerate this about you. And for him to just be like, no, I'm going to be the bad guy in this. And I don't really care. And that was not, in my opinion, a smart way to go.
Yeah, although it did give us what's actually going on, and he decides to keep doing it anyways. And he, is telling Ryan, from now on, I just do whatever I want. If I want a piece of cake, I'm gonna eat it. You'll learn, baby. You'll learn.
He was Florida Stanley before we got Florida Stanley.
And that led to a Creed
Yes.
moment. Creed's like, this guy don't care about nothing.
He don't give an F about nothing.
Yes.
What was that in response to? What did
He didn't refill the paper in the copier.
Oh, it's right.
Aren't you going to add any more paper?
See, you're right that had a couple of moments, but yeah, overall, like being forced to meet the husband, or just even when she comes in and they're pitching to her before we know she's married, and just the whole dynamic there, that was uncomfortable.
I wasn't uncomfortable at that point. Not until we find out that she's married, because it's kind of a cool story where like they meet and they hit it off at the bar. You're thinking, oh, cool, Michael's going to have his love interest. He actually found somebody again after Holly. But then it's like, oh, yeah, that's not good.
And they reused a similar storyline in that episode because we had Andy do that with a sales client that Stanley had, and that he traded and Andy started hitting on the sales client, except for that turned out she didn't like that. So I'm not always a fan, of course, when they reused very similar stories. It just feels a little lazy, and there's a lot that just felt lazy about Michael and Donna.
Yeah.
Mike, what do you got for worst storyline?
I mean, everything about Saber, I didn't think was necessary. I think that they tried to really mix it up and they tried to fulfill the old promise that there was going to be downsizing eventually by having the company sold off. But nothing about bringing Saber into the situation brought any extra humor or any more enjoyment to me.
I mean, it did give us Gabe,
Yeah.
who. Oh, you
Yeah.
said yeah, like that's a positive. I meant it as a negative.
Okay. In small doses,
Oh.
Gabe is a good foil. Like
Okay.
like the episode where like they're all making captions on like the two dogs on the island. They're all making fun of Gabe. That's hilarious. And like it's in little doses, but when you get too much Gabe, yeah, it is a negative.
Favorite Gabe moment is shut up about the sun.
I mean,
I love Gabe. I love the lengthen, elongate.
Yeah.
I'm with Brian. Small doses. Small doses is all we needed. And then nothing that we're going to get out of Joe was really worthwhile. Like, it was fun to see an amazing actress take on a role, but the character didn't really bring much to the show.
I like Joe. I thought it was refreshing. So I'll partially disagree with you, but then partially agree with a part of this because I think the Saber buyout is better than we're giving credit for, especially to bring Joe in as a character and to do something different that makes sense because they can't keep dangling that Dunder Mifflin has no money, layoffs, but that thread. They can't do that much longer. So it was something new, but what they didn't do well that was just so pointless was the whole printer fire
it's clearly
conspiracy.
a couple. Oh. But I mean, I think they clearly recognized at one point that the show was better without Saber by bringing essentially Dunder Mifflin back by having the company rebought.
Yeah. And they brought David Wallace back.
Yeah. And
I'm not
you
really
want David
sure
Wallace.
exactly. I mean, Joe was a different character, and she was a little different than David Wallace in some ways, but in other ways, like, it was a very serious business type person. It wasn't really that different of a character.
So, Brandon, what would you say for worst storyline?
Okay. I am going to go with Jim and Pam, the daycare interview.
Yeah.
I hated that, and especially because if I was going to, interview for a daycare and I walked in and found that one of the staff was using the children's toilet that doesn't lock, I'd be concerned. I'd be like, I'm not putting my kids here where any kid could just walk in on a grown man on the toilet. Like, there's definitely a staff bathroom that he could have used and chose not to. That's creepy.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just the whole thing I thought was weird anyways. I didn't care for it.
And it wasn't funny.
Yeah.
No.
My worst storyline also contains Jim, and Dwight versus Jim typically is a funny pairing, but it was malicious when Jim became the co-manager, and the Dwight versus Jim took on a flavor that I really didn't like, and especially like in episodes like Scott's Tots where you have a main like arc that is not very comfortable, and then you have the Dwight versus Jim debacle also happening in the same episode. It's just too much of the uncomfortability. So I just overall didn't like the Dwight versus Jim dynamic throughout this season.
Because normally when Jim is pranking Dwight, it's like a one and done. Like, haha, there's the punchline, and then he's done. When it's like ongoing, and it's like ongoing pain, either like annoyance or pain to Dwight, that's when it gets to be, really, do we have to keep doing this?
Yep. Agreed. All right, well, let's talk about good storylines. Like I said, this season 6 I felt like was not that great of a season, the worst of the Michael seasons, but it had a couple redeeming things. So I had already refuted a few things. I said Saber I thought was good. I said the Michael and Pam's mom I thought was pretty good. And then the one that I actually like is the only season that I think Andy and Aaron are succeeding in. I think their love in this season is the best of that storyline.
Yeah. And it's nice, especially in Happy Hour when like they're starting. They have some
Yeah.
Rocky, but then they get to the point where they're taking the microphone and being like, "I've been on dates with Aaron. I liked it." And like it's cheesy, but like they're both. It's kind of like when how Michael and Holly can be dorks together, but it works for them.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. There's a lot of humor too in that episode of them like not knowing how to do this. And so it's like, oh, follow my lead. So Aaron walks over to the guy. Hey, you like it when I do that? And rubs his leg. I like them. How about you guys? What's the best storyline of this season?
As much as Matt does, yeah, as much as Matt doesn't like the Jim being promoted in his relationship to Dwight, I really like the Jim being promoted in his relationship to Michael. I think that in both Koi Pond and in the promotion, we get to, or sorry, both in Koi Pond and in The Lover, we get to see Michael and Jim interact as equals. And that's really fun to see Michael interacting with an equal because he's always interacting with a subordinate or with someone in authority over him. And for him to finally have an ally, even if it's a shaky ally, is kind of enjoyable.
That's a great point. And then the other thing that we do get sometimes, I overall, I think there's a lot of missteps in how they made Jim manager and what they did with that. But there are some really good moments where Jim learns how to appreciate Michael and the things that he brings to the table. And I think Murder is the best
I was just gonna
episode
say that
for that.
when Jim is shutting it down at first, then after he realizes what's going on, he comes back in, and Michael thinks he's gonna shut him down, and he says, "There's been a murder," and like that, like a look of excitement on Michael's face, like they are coming to terms with each other as managers, even though it doesn't last very long.
Yes.
It was also
Cool.
a fun pairing because Jim has to play the straight guy for the first time in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And I think for me, that might be where I might have had the issue with it because Jim works better as more humorous and pranky and that sort of thing versus a straight guy. But I did like him as straight guy in when I can't remember what it is, when Pam finds out about that. And he's just kind of like just trying to about her mom and Michael. And he's just trying to stay out of the way.
Yeah, I kind of equate Jim a lot of the times to like Jeffrey from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, where his role is just to walk in and say, "Look at these crazy guys," and then walk out.
Don't dim the camera.
I was demonstrating Jim.
No, that's a good line. All right, Brian, what do you think? Best storyline?
I think that I understood storyline different. I was thinking at the micro level, so going within the episode instead of across multiple episodes. So just with that in mind, I thought Daryl messing with Andy in the cover-up episode was really funny. The way he was like, I still no plan. It's like jazz, just figuring out, there it is, that's it. You know, I just really enjoyed the interaction those two had throughout that episode.
And isn't that the one at the end where the printer does catch fire and
It
Daryl's
does
like,
catch fire. He's like, I don't want to prank anymore.
I think season 6 and season 7 are some of Daryl's best seasons. He definitely
Yeah.
gets a lot more once he comes upstairs, and there's a lot of fun opportunity for him.
Was it in season 6 or 7, or was it later when they have the Daryl, Andy, Kevin band forming, or did that come later?
Season
That
6,
is
I
season
believe.
6 and 7.
okay. It's somewhere in there. That's another interesting pairing because we've seen them all be musical, but then it's like, hey, let's get these all guys all together, and it weirdly works.
Yeah. I like their frog song.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You
Go
know,
ahead.
I was listening to Brian Baumgartner's got his podcast where he interviews celebrities, and he talked about how it was like an inside joke from the writers to make Kevin the drummer and singer of a Police cover band because it secretly makes him like a musical genius because you sing on the offbeats, and so it's really hard for their music to drum and sing, and yet Kevin can do it.
Yeah.
Brian, what do you got for best storyline this season?
I talked about Aaron and Andy, and also just, I mean, even though it's kind of just cliche, but the Jim and Pam getting married and having a baby. This is kind of the last season we have any kind of good storyline with Jim and Pam. After that, they're just kind of there.
Yeah. Yeah, the marriage episode is really good, and I think that's probably even a good launch off part because for me, that's one of the top episodes. If we're talking about best episodes of the season, Niagara is definitely up there because even though, like as Angie said in our last episode, they did drop the ball on the proposal between Jim and Pam, and a little bit of like their when they actually finally get together in season 4. You don't see them get together. It's like, oh, it's a secret, and so there's some things that we've been waiting for so long, and they don't even pay off that. But this was a very good payoff. This is a payoff that fans have been waiting for so long for Jim and Pam, and that like. The Andy tears a scrotum crap, it was stupid, and there's some other stuff.
It was fine.
But the actual wedding and then a little bit of the stuff in the hotel between Dwight and Michael was good. But the wedding, like it sealed the deal. It was fantastic.
Yeah. And Kevin's toupee and Kleenex shoes from top to bottom. Literally, Kevin was funny.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? What was your favorite episode of the season?
I have 2, so I'm gonna let you guys choose, and then I'll choose whichever one isn't up there.
So there's a lot of great options here, but I'm going to go with an unconventional one and go with Koi Pond. I really liked it because we get a lot of scenes actually in the office, and we get a lot of very realistic scenes that could actually take place. This is one of the seasons of The Office where you start to see the writers are clearly running out of typical office humor. And so they're taking them out of the office more, doing other things with them. Whereas you're going to see them on sales calls. And like, while the situation they end up to is obviously odd and humorous, you do get to see the conference room meeting. You get to see some typical office moments that have some great laughs in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what was the B story besides Jim and Michael, or was that kind of just the whole thing?
So they're both called. Is Michael and Jim are going together on a call, and of course Michael falls into the Koi Pod. And the B plot is that Pam and Andy go on a sales call, and they get mistaken for a couple.
Oh,
they're feuding the rest of the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Koi Pond also I liked the cold open that they had, but that has been cut. That Koi Pond was the episode that had a Halloween Halloween short cold open. I'm going to use all the wrong words. The Halloween cold open that ended up getting cut. And there were some really funny jokes in it, especially the fact that Jim dresses up as Facebook, so he just writes a book on his face. And Daryl is giving the tour through the haunted warehouse. He's like, and here we have Bookface. He's like, yes, I'm the popular social media network known as Bookface.
Didn't that end with Michael pretending to kill himself and traumatizing all the children?
Yep, and that's why it is no longer, you can't find it in any of these because you see him fake hang himself, but that, of course, imagery can be triggering for people who've gone through that sort of thing. So, Brandon, what do you think? What is your best episode?
I got to go with Murder.
That was my runner-up.
Yeah.
It's so funny from start to finish. You get to see like all of the cast get to have little moments. It's just classic.
And it's not even filler because it leads up to the Sabre buyout and Dunder Mifflin going under.
Yeah. And very real responses from the characters we know up to that point of them, of like Oscar is still trying to figure out things. And when they make him try and play along, he doesn't do it well. Creed thinks it's real.
That is my favorite moment from Oscar, is him trying to do the Savannah accent, like telling them what's happening. This plantation, run along, greenbacks. Just the effort he's putting in, and like even watching Michael's face as like contort as he's confused what's happening. Oh, it's just gold. Just gold.
And it has a fun ending of all of them in the standoff at the end.
That I'll talk about that standoff later.
Yeah. No, that would work. Great pick, Brandon. I love that episode.
I had to go with the stereotypical pick of Niagara. Just it's the 2-part episode, not only just because of the Jim and Pam. There's just so many great character moments. I liked the Andy tearing scrotum moment because they didn't help dwell on it too much. I know you don't, Matt. If they had made it more of the episode, it'd be bad. But it's like, I love that Pam calls Jim and has to be like, Andy's in my room icing his balls. Which,
What?
We get to hear drunk Jim for I think the first out of 2 times I think we get drunk Jim in the series.
The thing that I hate about Andy tearing his scrotum is that if you watch Niagara Part 1 and 2 on Apple, it has it at the end of Part 1 and the beginning of Part 2, and so you see it twice.
oh,
And so
that's
that gets annoying.
Double scrot
but
tear.
otherwise, it's fine. Yeah.
Do either of you guys listen to the Office Ladies podcast? And did you guys know about what they were going to do with that episode? So originally they had this whole big plan. Roy was going to show up at the wedding on a horse and try to break up the wedding. And then Dwight was going to buy the horse and try to ride the horse off Niagara. And you were going to see Dwight and the horse in the background when Jim and Pam are getting married on the boat. It was going to be this whole big thing, but then it got to be like way too expensive. And it's like, you know what? We don't need to bring Roy back. He wouldn't try to break up the wedding after this many years. And so like it was just would have been crazy
Wow.
though.
I feel like that would be a jump the shark moment. Remember the episode
Yeah.
where Dwight jumped over Niagara Falls with the horse?
At least they weren't going to make him successful.
Yeah.
And it's good because honestly, in that moment, I would be more concerned about the horse's safety than Jim and Pam getting married. Because I like animals. I don't like animals getting killed in movies.
Yeah, because the funny part of it was them doing the dance, and you got at least the serious part of it in the B footage or B roll that they filmed.
Yeah. Which turns out that part was the only part they actually filmed in Niagara. They only brought Jim and Pam and some crew to Niagara, and everyone else got to film in LA and pretend they were at Niagara, which makes sense because that would be expensive to bring everybody out there.
Yep. Yeah, and they brought them in international to Canada. They have concierges there.
Mm-hmm. Concierge Marie.
Concierge Marie. All right.
So should we just all say the worst episode at the same time?
I mean, it's not just the worst episode of the season. It's the worst episode of the show. And it might be the worst episode of any show. It's so terrible. Scott's Tots, obviously.
Does anybody have an answer
What?
that's not Scott's Tots?
Of course,
mean-
the banker.
The banker, obviously. It's
Yeah.
not a real episode.
Yeah,
Still better than Scott's Tots to me.
it is because it's
No.
less painful, but it's just like, oh, a clip show. Great. That's what we need.
Sometimes, if done correctly, a clip show can be refreshing.
I can't think of any show besides Community who has done it well.
Well, that one doesn't count.
Not in the age of YouTube. Like, if you want to see clips of a show, you just go on YouTube and look up a compilation. I don't need that as an entire episode of the show.
Yeah.
I just thought it was a total waste. And while Scott's Tots, like, yeah, I felt the same way everyone else did initially. Over the years, it's like, it's actually not as bad anymore. And I actually somewhat enjoy it now. It's still one of the weaker episodes for sure. Like, if I wasn't going to pick the banker, I'd pick Scott's Tots as worst. But I don't hate it.
I do have to say, I really like the laugh in it of like, you like lead up to the batteries and then it's like, they're all like freaking out. Wait, they're lithium.
I mean, just
it
as he's getting into that, he's like, does anyone have intuition? Know what someone's going to say? Does anyone have that? Nope, you're going to make me say it. Like, that is really funny to me.
I mean, it is an absolute masterclass in cringe humor, but that doesn't mean I ever want to watch it again.
Exactly. That's a great point, Mike.
Yeah, it does its job very, very well. So well, in fact, it's terrible.
But it's a job that nobody asked for.
Yes. Yep, that's true. So Scott's Tots, Banker. But yeah, I did write Banker down as well because it does deserve to be spat on, in my opinion. All right, what brings us to memeable moments. I felt like this season and season 7 had so many memes that we see constantly used all the time. I'll throw out one of at the beginning of the whole season with the parkour. We talked about that for Cold Open. I remember that would pop up a bunch as a meme. I don't think that's the best, but I've seen it used as a meme a lot.
Yeah.
So what do you guys got? What are some of the best memes for you, or most gifable moments?
I love Stanley's. My doctor told me to cut out hot dogs. We all got problems.
That's a good line.
I don't know. I don't know if this one's just me, but one of my favorites is Oscar when he goes, Pam and Jim are on their honeymoon, so there's not the usual balance between sane and others. Toby is mentally checked out since June. It's a very dangerous time. The coalition for reason is extremely weak. Because, like, you've had those times when you've looked around a room and you're like, oh, crap. Like, I am way outnumbered with loony people in this room.
Yeah.
And, like, just something about, like, the way Oscar delivers that, too, is it's fantastic. The coalition for reason is extremely weak.
Yeah. It's kind of like, you guys all know me. If I'm the voice of reason in a room, then there's something wrong.
There's a similar side of that at the end of season 7 when Creed is the manager and he's calling all of the clients and Pam's like, why does this fall to me?
Yeah.
Oh, is that when Pam's just doing voices and being clients?
Yes.
Yes.
Like, they're not actually going to give Creed access to clients.
Not anymore.
My answer has got to be what I mentioned earlier: the murder standoff with Michael, Dwight, Andy, and Pam. Is that all 4 of them?
Yes.
At the end, doing that. That's the best one, I think.
That's good. I like this has started to come up as a meme more and more. But it's the episode, The Lover, when Pam finds out, but she's like excited, like, "Who is it, Michael?" And then just stares at her. "Who is it?"
Yep.
And then, like, her face falls, and as she knows, who is it?
But Jim's face, as he's like listening to it, he knows it's coming, and he's just like dead-eyed, staring at the camera, like mortified for what's about to happen. Like that, Jim's look is why I love that scene, even more than Pam's realization. Yeah, that's a great one.
Shaking his head in pain. I also put at the very end of the season when Michael's talking with Joe on the plane, and he's talking about how terrible. He's like, it's been a rough month, whole year actually.
So it hasn't been his day, his week, his month, or even his year.
None of those. Nope. Thanks, Brian.
I mean, the whole dance down the aisle in Niagara gives you so many great gifts. Dwight kicking the bridesmaid in the face, like there's a lot of great dance moments there.
Have you seen when they redid that? So there's a couple that had a COVID marriage, and for a little while, John Krasinski had this show where it was like his Some Good News, and he actually had Jenna Fisher on a Zoom call as a guest, and they got like almost all the cast of The Office, I mean, separately in their homes, recreating their dance to like, we saw this montage for this couple getting married with like even like Steve Carell and everybody at their home dancing to the song again, which is kind of cool.
That might be the closest thing we get to an Office reunion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is season 6. Any other thoughts about season 6 before we jump into season 7? All right.
I will just throw out there that another like storyline that was amazing was the Mallard. Just the way that Jim got to mess with Dwight, and how Dwight actually was still recording through a pen the entire time.
And the creepiness at the end where he's the talking head of like, I'm not insane. Like, all right, easy, Rainn Wilson.
And the gag of like the character he is not very savvy, actually pulling like a double recording. They did that in Community as well when Pierce gave Britta 2 different recording devices to record her with Subway.
Yeah.
I just thought of that just now.
That's true. It's been used.
The Community movie has that show in my mind lately. They're making a Community movie, if you guys haven't heard.
I'm excited.
Yes.
Hopefully we get Donald Glover back.
Yeah,
All right.
Another one to throw out real quickly is the delivery is incredibly relatable. Out of any TV show, I think the delivery captured just how awkward it is that you now have a baby and the hospital just lets you leave.
Yeah.
And like, there's so many things you have no idea what you're doing. And like, The Office just captured that awkwardness so well.
You're giving us this baby to just leave with? We could be murderers. You don't know. I mean, we're not.
You hear the baby crying, right? Mm-hmm. Yep.
Not our problem. All right, let's jump into season 7, and I'm going to start with best cold open because the way that season 7 starts off is just a wonderful cold open with the lip dub at the beginning of season 7. Wonderful cold open. It's really hard to top that for me. I have a runner-up, but why not just throw that out there?
Yeah, that's definitely on my list. It probably is my favorite one. Oh, the only other one is when they're going through what Stanley won't notice in The Office.
Absolutely.
That was my backup.
Yeah.
Yeah, costume contest
Yeah.
is that's just fantastic. Like they put the bag over the computer, and it's so good.
And Andy's not wearing a shirt. Phyllis is Kevin, but he notices the clock is 2 minutes slow.
And Dwight's there with a pony as he's walking out.
Which proves that Stanley was quiet quitting before it was cool.
And Dwight had that immediate access to a pony that he could have it there in a moment's notice.
But that's
Well-
not surprising for Dwight.
Yeah, I mean, you heard about his invention at Niagara, right? You could obtain 6 burgers from a horse or 12 small sliders without killing the animal. He-
And we've already seen him bring animals to the office when he brought Henrietta in the porcupine.
Or the mention of the goose that came in that they became attached to before they killed it.
Oh yeah.
Another
I
cold
think-
open that deserves being mentioned is when Daryl's grandmother passes away,
Oh
and
yeah.
everyone mistakes it for his birthday. The look that Craig Robinson gives the camera there is amazing.
I like Jenna Fisher's look too, like the pain of, oh no, I'm so sorry.
I love the pedidexterity opening.
Dwight
Dwight
using his
trying to
feet?
do everything with his feet
Mhm.
and just spilling the coffee all over himself just because he won't admit that he's wrong.
Thanks, hands. No one can do what you do.
You can even see Phyllis laughing at him.
I
Which I
mean,
don't think she was supposed to.
And the coffee Jim brings, of course, it's like to the very brim.
Yeah.
Of course it is. There you go. All right. So those are our cold openings. Let's save a little bit of this. Let's do.
Also, it's not a cold open, but I made this joke to Matt earlier. Nepotism, the first episode had, Evan Peters as the guest star, which means season 7 literally started with Michael spanking Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yep. AKA Ralph Boner.
Yes, but Jeffrey Dahmer is more culturally relevant.
It is, but I'm still mad at WandaVision for teasing Quicksilver and it being, oh, Ralph Boner. Still mad. All right, let's do most memeable because this was again another season that had a lot of great memes. The GIF that I actually use a lot comes from counseling when Michael's just sitting there like staring angrily at Toby and it just does this quick zoom in on him. I've used that meme so many times. So I have to put that as my number 1, even though there's a lot of other good ones.
Say any moment from Threat Level Midnight as well.
Yes.
That's how you do the scarn.
Mine actually has to come from D'Angelo Vickers, and it's one that I have to stop myself from using all the time. I got tons of time. This job's a joke. I gotta stop myself from telling that to my coworkers or my boss when they ask if I have a minute.
That's a great line. That's a great meme. How about you, Mike?
I really like several moments in China are really kind of fun because we've all dealt with that really smug person at work,
Mhm.
and there's several good memeable moments there.
Some of us have been that.
Right. Yeah, it's like you have one of those people here right now. But I was going to say, Brandon lives his life by the one Futurama quote of, "You are technically correct. The best kind of correct." That's Brandon's guiding the star there.
I like to think I'm Jim, but I know that I'm probably more Oscar.
This season did also give us the corporate needs you to find the difference between these two pictures meme. So we've got a lot of mileage out of that.
We got Dwight running around with the camelback on too.
Oh yeah, that's when they get stuck in the elevator, and then they have to establish the P corner, right?
They don't have to. He willingly does it within 12 seconds. Let's clarify.
He had to establish a P corner.
He had 56 ounces of fluid in his bladder.
Oh, Dwight, we're supposed to be wearing these weird backpack water bottle hybrids. Oh, you got the memo.
And
Season
then
7 is
obviously-
also home to one of my favorite Gabe quotes, which is in Goodbye Michael, and pardon my French, as he walks out, walk away, bitch, as he's like holding back tears.
I mean-
Speaking, okay, I know that this isn't really a meme, but I just have to. You brought up Goodbye Michael, and one of my favorite moments. And we talked about Oscar. I love when he gives the gift to Oscar,
Oh, yeah.
and then the talking head of him just losing it and laughing at how like Oscar just receives this gift. It's like he has the lowest opinion of me. I love that moment so much.
Yeah.
I mean, you already did the shut up about the sun, but I mean,
Yes.
you can't hear anyone talk about the sun now without thinking, shut up about the sun. Shut up about the sun.
Well, let's piggyback on. Well, I guess not piggyback, but I'm sure we will piggyback in a way about Gabe, because we're going to talk about worst storyline of season 7. And there's a couple. There's a couple that are like, we really don't need it. For me, honestly, it's like the 3 that I put down here all are like an addition of a character. We just don't care or need this character.
Yeah.
So who wants to go first?
I'll go with I hated Jim and Dan harassing Danny about their first date, Danny
Oh,
and Pam's first date.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that was really cringy. Yeah, I don't have anything else to add besides that.
Yeah, I did have some cringe that I didn't enjoy. I liked Danny Cordray overall,
Yeah.
especially the Sting episode. I really enjoyed how that played out. And I like Timothy Olyphant. He's pretty good.
I liked that episode, but I didn't like it as a storyline that he actually got hired at the end, because like we never do we see him ever again after that, and it just
No.
Mm-mm.
yeah, it's almost like a plot hole. I know they mentioned it one other time, but it's just they could have just made it a one and done without him being hired. I mean, there was kind of a funny joke at the end. He's like, "Oh,
Well,
I
he's
forgot
in
we
2
got
episodes.
Todd Packer." He wasn't too.
He's in yeah, because he's in costume contest, isn't he?
Yep.
Oh,
That's
you're
the
right.
very next episode, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I stand corrected.
I mean, I get your point, but I think that's a really good Michael moment to showcase again how he is a good salesman. And it's a great moment of like the pitch to get him to join Dunder Mifflin.
Mhm.
I think it works really well. I like the reasoning Michael uses, and I enjoyed that idea of it. They mention him again at like the Dundies because he wins. Danny Cordray wins hottest in the office.
And Ryan's like, well, what's the criteria for hottest?
But you're right, he doesn't show up. I didn't see that coming, but there you go, Brandon. Okay, anyone else? What's a worst storyline?
I could have done without Andy pining after Aaron.
Okay.
They didn't need to break him up, but once they did break him up, it was just kind of awkward.
Yeah.
See him like vulturing around, waiting on the relationship to die.
Yeah, and not only that, but like, why would they put her with Gabe anyways? That's a in and out of universe, doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one that I had on here, was the Aaron and Gabe. And pretty much the Andy, Aaron, Gabe love triangle is probably one of the weakest love triangles I think I've ever seen. And I've seen a number of young adult movies. So, I mean, there's some bad ones.
Mm-hmm.
I put, talking about like single characters, just the addition of like D'Angelo. I didn't find really Will Ferrell to be any weight in this, apart from the cold open where we first are introduced with him. I didn't mind that little dynamic of meeting in the bar, but everything with D'Angelo after that, it just didn't work for me. And especially in Goodbye Michael, it was a really, really good episode, but then they dedicate a little bit of time to fill out the hour by having Andy and D'Angelo go on a call, and there wasn't anything funny about that. It was just distracting and took away time that I would rather have spent saying goodbye to Michael.
And when they do the goodbye song to Michael in Michael's Last Dundies, the fact that Dwight's not there and D'Angelo didn't sit right with me. I know there's a storyline like Dwight was mad and he left, but like I don't feel like D'Angelo earned his spot in that song.
Yes.
I mean, don't you wish that they would have done the Training Day episode and then they would have left him out of the next couple of episodes and then had Will Ferrell for more episodes afterwards? Like there was too much Michael and D'Angelo overlap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah, I definitely didn't want to see much of him in Goodbye Michael.
Mhm.
Hmm.
All right, well,
And I mean, too much of the last Undies is dedicated to him too.
we
Yeah.
can talk about also staying on the worst topic. Let's do worst episode. There wasn't too many that were just really stinkers in this season, in my opinion. I think probably the one that I didn't like the most was Christening.
Hmm.
It didn't do anything for me, and the whole bus thing with Andy and Michael it was uncomfortable. And then like Angela stealing our baby, that was a bit of a stretch. Just didn't really land. Apart from Toby yelling at God, that was the only good part of the episode, in my opinion.
Why you gotta be so mean to me?
Yeah. And like we've all been on church trips. You can't just get on a bus. You have to fill out forms and insurance and pay fees and stuff, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was my worst episode too. So my backup was Viewing Party, and that's just because I like similar to Christening. It's not that it was like horrible. It's just overall kind of bland to me. It's kind of boring.
I actually like Viewing Party.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
I had
funny
Viewing
moments in
Party.
it.
I had
It's like-
Viewing Party on my list too
For worst or best.
for worst.
I like it's like when Andy tells Creed, "Can you read this?" Meow, meow. And he does that. And then there's the nice Aaron and Michael moment where he's like being her dad at the end, and like all the stupid like Jim switches the channel and Kelly's like, "Was it worth it, Jim? Was it worth it to miss the song?" But yeah, all the Andy, Aaron, Gabe stuff was dumb. So I'll give you that.
Mike disagrees about Aaron and Michael having a nice moment. I can see in
I
his
mean,
face.
it was a nice moment that just got really, really too awkward too fast.
Yeah,
Like him scolding her and telling her to go to her room and everything. Like, I get it's a comedy, but that just got kind of infantile. Like it got creepy really fast.
see, I'm in that corner too. I felt like the Aaron Michael dynamic there's a little bit of like a father type figure, and that's fine, but it was so on the nose that it wasn't the subtlety's gone then. And I would rather like an episode like where Secretary's Day, where yeah, she breaks up with Andy and but then her and Michael have like a moment at the end when he's talking with her outside as she's freaking out about it. That to me is a better bonding moment than we saw in Viewing Party.
I agree that that's better, but I disagree. Like, I don't find it cringe at all, and it's for the
Neither.
reason that like Erin is totally traumatized by her orphan past, right? She hasn't had like parents. She's just grown up in foster homes, and so yeah, it's infantile for Michael to do that, but it's because she just desperately needs a father figure, and he's not her father, but he's just gonna play the part of like a father with a young daughter. Like she's seeking Michael's approval, which is already infantile of her to do for the relationship.
And Michael's always wanted to be a parent, so it's like they're both kind of giving each other what they want in that moment. It'd be cringy with anybody else, but I think for those two it works.
Yeah.
I'm
So I
like
don't
Matt.
mind
It's just
that
too
part.
on the nose. It was just too on the nose.
Yeah, we're two
Like
on
we
two.
could
on
have
this
done
one.
it without actually. Yeah.
We'll come together and all agree that the Dwight, Pam, Jim storyline in this episode was better.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I want Jim to feed me.
Pam,
single
I
piece
know
of
what you have
pepperoni.
to do, but this is more important. Are you authorized to make this change? I have been so authorized.
See, I'm convincing you that this is a good episode.
No, I mean it's not. I wouldn't say this is a bad episode, but it is weakest outside of Christening, and I would agree that this is second weekest.
Yeah, I don't think there's a single episode that I don't like any part of it. And so, like, it's hard to pick a worst and go, yeah, this episode just sucks. Like, I can't just dunk wholeheartedly on an episode. There's always little bits that I like.
There you go.
Well, I had Viewing Party and I had Andy's Play both because both of them are so far outside of what we normally get with The Office. That they also both seem very unrealistic to me that they would all be hanging out at Gabe's house and all hanging out at their coworkers' musical. And like they both have good moments, but like the main overarching theme of the episode is a really weak one. Like it would be fine as a B plot, but they're both really weak A plots.
Yeah, and going back to cringe, like we talk a lot about cringe because of the show it is. I just in the play episode when it gets to his phone's going off on
Oh yeah, I
stage
don't like that.
and then the bottle rolling and then the popping of the balloons and Aaron and the baby crying. It's just like compounding as someone who is actually in plays actively, it really makes me be like, oh, this is just the worst. I feel so uncomfortable.
The Andy in the phone, that I can't stand, but I actually think it's really funny with Michael in the bottle and the balloons. Because, like, audience members do things usually not that bad, but stupid like that. But someone in the play doing it, like, that's unforgivable.
Yes.
Yeah. I like to rather see like behind the stage scenes, cause like stuff going on, because that could be more relatable.
Yep. Then go see the play Noises Off.
Yeah.
No, by the way, if anyone ever has a chance to see a play Noises Off and there's semi-talented people in it, go see it. It's a hilarious play. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, we've hit the best. Now we hit the worst. Now I wanted to save the best for the end because I know a lot of it's going to tie around Michael and his final season. So let's hit with best storyline of the season.
3-way tie for me. So let's see what you guys got.
Okay, go ahead, Brandon.
I'm going with Pam cons her way into a new job title.
That
I
is
love
a
it.
great. I like it.
Because for me, I've had a few different job titles now in the last few years, and I felt like I conned my way into all of them. And so it's like my inspiration.
And we needed a win for Pam. We really
Yes.
did. Like, sure, yeah, she had a baby. She got married. Those are great wins, but we needed a professional win for her because she always has just kind of been there and nothing really broke her way. I agree completely. Mike, what do you got?
While I don't necessarily love the end result, the whole question of who the next manager is going to be was handled really well.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just keeps you guessing, and they used it as a good opportunity to obviously bring in a bunch of guest stars and do a whole bunch of very like memorable little things with Dwight getting to take the role, and then all the interviews taking place, and obviously bringing in Will Ferrell for a short period of time. Like some of the stuff before and some of the stuff after, I didn't love, but the way they handled those couple of episodes were really well done.
Even though I don't love that I don't like that they get rid of Michael, but I think the way they did it with him finding closure with Holly and like making his peace with leaving the office, and the way they did that, and even like letting us finally see his Threat Level Midnight movie, I think they handled his exit very well.
Yeah, absolutely. Once Classy Christmas hit, it was just a string of really good episodes as we got Michael and Holly getting some closure there, Michael leaving on good terms with everyone, and then they did really good with some of this stuff with finding a new boss. Like the Dwight episode of him as acting manager was really good, and him coming gun safety Dwight was just an inspired idea, even if he's like, yeah, I can't, I'm not Michael, I can't pretend. I think too, I've said this before, but I think the show would have done really well in the next season in 8 if instead of James Spader, they would have decided to go with Ray Romano's character being the boss. Because I think he's a sad sack enough that it would have allowed the power dynamic to remain the same that it was with all the other characters, but we would have had an incompetent boss in a very different way than when we had up until that point. And Ray Romano is really funny. I think we would have gotten some really good moments with him because even in the couple scenes we had, I thought Ray was hilarious.
That could work. I'm not sure if he would have been a strong enough character though.
But I think that's also that was what was one of the highlights for me. I thought was that you had all these other characters, and Michael Scott was just like this powerhouse. And you didn't want someone to come in and be a new Michael Scott.
Yeah,
you wanted someone to bring a different dynamic and allow all the other dynamics to remain relatively unchanged, and for them to continue doing what they do best.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me because I've come to love the chaos that is Robert California, and so like. I'm glad that we had a season of James Spader just being psychotic.
That people are starting to come into that opinion more and more. So I can't knock it too much, even though I wildly disagree
they're
with
wrong.
it. Exactly.
They're wrong, but they can have their opinion.
Yeah. Everyone got their best storyline. I mean, I kind of hinted at it too, where it's like both Michael and Holly and Michael leaving, all that wrapped up together.
Yeah.
Best episode. one of them for sure is Goodbye Michael. Did you guys have other ones besides Goodbye Michael as your top?
Goodbye, Michael, and then on the funny side, Threat Level Midnight. I think they're the two ends of the coin with that one.
Exactly the same.
Yeah, so those two are two you can't ignore. The other one that's thrown in there is Garage Sale.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Michael's whole proposal is incredibly well done.
Mhm.
And then you also have a running Jim Dwight prank during that too.
And them playing Dallas. I don't feel like there's a weak storyline in Garage Sale at any moment.
And there's so many Easter eggs in there too. You have the clown painting from Jim and Pam's house. You have Michael's beer sign. You have I'm sure there's more that I'm not thinking of.
Yeah, that was a really good episode. Threat Level Midnight is really funny because that was another one with plenty of Easter eggs and a chance to bring back Miller Hardin or I want to say Ann Perkins, Rashida Jones. There you go.
Yeah,
her real name.
Threat Level Midnight, I think, is like the only time I'm actually like excited and happy to see Todd Packer when he shows up as the drunk guy in the scar. And it's like that is the perfect spot to put in Todd Packer, and of course he would do that. And in my mind, he wasn't just acting drunk. Todd Packer got drunk for real.
Yeah.
This time on watching it, my cynical mind kicked in of like, oh, there's no way all of these warehouse people would join in to do the Scarn. There's no way Stanley would agree to this voiceover. They wiped over how like Daryl decided and like they gave that stuff like that. But it's just like, no, they wouldn't do these things.
Yeah. Tony Gardner came back after being fired.
Well, yeah, you think? I mean, it has to be then in the canon for The Office that Michael immediately put him in his movie because he was only there for one day. So Michael must have had him film a little bit on the day he quit.
Which role was he in the movie?
He was a piano player,
plays
right?
the piano player, right? Yeah.
That Jan sings on.
Gotcha. Okay. I didn't remember seeing him in there. But I mean there was also the like Hobbit guy too. So I think the timeline was a little screwy there of having Ryan's short friend.
I'm just gonna insist that that Michael just instantly wanted to make everyone part of the family. And so he instantly put them in his movie. And I think as far as Stanley, I think what we've learned, and it's a couple of good cold opens here, is Stanley will do anything possible to not work. And so him having to read a little bit, Michael might have given him the rest of the day off. Like, who knows?
Yeah, that's very true.
Look at that. See, you just giving me good headcanon. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah. Or if you read this, I'll give you my pretzel, and Stanley can have 2 pretzels on pretzel day. That would do it too.
But I love pretzel day.
By the way, one other storyline that I really hated is Inner Circle. I hated the Boys Club storyline. Not because it's not unrealistic, but because of how many of our characters went along with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, it was borderline nauseating to see, like, Daryl, for instance, just be like, yeah, I know what he's doing is wrong, but he's putting me through classes, and so I'm going to go along with it.
To me, another thing that I don't like about that is seeing them do the exact same thing 3 episodes later at the beginning of season 8. Because that's what Robert California does. He has a list of in-group and out-group. And it's the exact same storyline. And it's not even that much of a time gap has passed.
No.
Apart from it being a different season.
Yeah, but in universe is like right afterwards.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure where this would fit in, probably with like some better moments, but also it's just kind of nice to see everybody's final moments with Michael, like, and how they're so unique. Like, he did paintball with Dwight. He had that nice talk with Jim. And it's just like how, like the last, he saw him at the wedding and the finale, but the last moments with people can be so unique and memorable for, not even having to be big and emotional.
Yeah. Yeah, and they all had you're right, they all had really good ones. It's nice that they got like really solid moments with the big guys. Jim and him had a great moment. Pam and him had a great moment that we couldn't hear, and it's left up to your imagination.
Yeah.
And him and Dwight again. And then, of course, he had all the small ones that were just really funny. So gave you the emotional weight on those couple of the big cast. Yeah. All right. Well, anything else about season 7 from you guys?
Just double check my notes. I think we went through everything I had.
Awesome. Well, there it is. We just said goodbye to Michael in our own way as well. And we'll be saying goodbye to Mike here when we close out the episode. I don't know if that ties in.
But also, Mike will be back next week as well.
Oh yeah, Mike, you're popping back in. So we're saying goodbye for now. Next week is going to be a really good episode because we are talking about our top villains, and we're doing like a March Madness style bracket. We've done things like that before, so we're going to see who are the best villains in all of television history. But before we get that, here's a couple questions. We had trivia last week. Ryan, what was last week's trivia?
So last week, even though we're called the TV guys, we talked about early 2000s internet. And actually, it tied into The Office. Which of the videos we talked about last week did Michael Scott say he watched about 1,000 times? And that is Chocolate Rain. Although technically he said Cookie
Monster sings Chocolate Rain.
Yep. So I'm still going to count that.
Yeah, count it. All right. So this week we talked about that final episode of season 7 when they're looking for a new manager, and one of the characters that they get, or one of the actors, is a businessman. And so one of the special guests is this businessman. What is the business that he is CEO of? And let us know what that is, and we'll have that answer for you next week. Mike knows it. I can see it. He knows. Good for you. I know it too. I mean, I hope so because I asked it. So,
and then you know what? Since you'll be here next week, Mike, you can answer the question next week.
Can I answer it in excruciating detail?
Yes.
Awesome.
I would love that. I love excruciating detail. But until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
I'm Brandon.
I'm Mike.
And we're reminding you to stay tuned and keep watching.